How difficult is German as a language? So, this language often gets disagreed upon about how actually hard it is. There's a lot of people saying, oh, it's easy. I have heard people say it's the easiest language, not very much, just because English is also a Germanic language. And then some people say German's so hard, it's almost as hard as Russian. I've only heard one person say that. I think they were just off their rocker. But yeah, there's a lot of difference in how difficult German seems to be according to different people. So yeah, getting straight into it. By the way, I'm quite sick at the moment, so if I do sound a little bit different, I'm very sorry. You're lucky you're even getting a video because I feel terrible. But yeah, a little bit about German. It is the 12th most spoken language in the world, with 133 million speakers, and it is spoken officially in 6 countries. So Germany, obviously, Austria, Switzerland, Belgium, Liechtenstein, and Luxembourg. If you don't know where any of those countries are, ideally you know where Germany is. Underneath Germany are Austria and Switzerland. Switzerland, I believe, is on the west, the left. Belgium is between Germany and France. It's the lower of the 2 main countries. Luxembourg is underneath Belgium. It's tiny. And Liechtenstein is even smaller. I believe it's somewhere between... Oh, actually, I don't fully know. I know the area. It's like between Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Austria. It's in that area. But yeah, Liechtenstein is really tiny. So yeah, those are the 6 countries. German is a Germanic language, another surprise for you, of the Indo-European family. So if you have watched these videos, you'll know English is also a Germanic language. So finally, a language that is actually the same branch as English, not even just the same family, they have the same branch. So it has a high amount of lexical similarity to English, 60%, which means the vocab has kind of 60. It's not as simple as that. It's not like 60% of the words are identical and can be used the same, but they have a lot in common is basically what that means. As far as Germanic languages go, that Germanic branch, it's subdivided into West Germanic, North Germanic, and East Germanic languages. German is a West Germanic language, along with English, so they're even more similar within the branch. So North Germanic languages are also Scandinavian languages, so you've got like Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, I just had a mind blank there, sorry. Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, Icelandic as well. Those are all North Germanic languages, whereas West Germanic languages are split into, oh my god, I'm sorry. I think there's English and Dutch, English and Frisian on one side, and then German and Dutch on the other side. It might be split into Netherlandic and... I can't quite remember that, I'm really sorry. I can't go that far, but yeah, English and German are West Germanic languages, both of the Germanic branch, both of the Indo-European language family. So they are very closely related, is my point there. German uses an additional letter, which is that one. It looks a bit like beta. If you know the Greek alphabet, it makes a sound similar to S. So yeah, if you're reading German, you will notice that that's a little bit different. And it's the only letter not a part of the English alphabet, obviously. German also uses 4 cases, so it's a bit complicated to explain what cases are. Basically, it's the role a noun has in a sentence, whether it's doing the action, receiving the action, that kind of thing. I will talk about that later in how German is difficult or easy. And German also capitalizes every noun. So if you read that sentence, they also capitalize every noun. The word noun would have a capital letter in German, if that makes sense, because the word noun is a noun, obviously. German uses compound nouns as well, which I will have to show you an example of for you to understand. But basically, it's a bunch of words stick together to make one really big word. It's not too difficult, but it can be interesting for beginners. So, how difficult is it? German is an interesting one because it is very similarly related to English. And a lot of people, I think I've had this discussion in the comments. It was a very respectful discussion about how is relatability of 2 languages the only thing that makes it easy? And the answer is no. So, a lot of people get it into their head that just because 2 languages are very closely related, they are automatically, it's easy to learn the other one if you know one. There's a general, this is true a lot of the time, I should say, sorry. There's a correlation between relatability and how easy a language is, but it's not the only thing. A lot of people think the only thing that matters is how similar the language is. Not true. And the reason for that is the way I explained it to the person in the comments, and the way is the way it was explained to me, sorry, which is basically, you can be related. You're related to your ancestors, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're more similar to your ancestors than to people you're not related to. So you can have a friend, for example, and be very similar to them, even though you're not related to them at all. That's kind of how languages work. So as far as being descended from other languages, obviously they're going to have some things in common because they used to be the same language. That's how this language ancestry works. They were the same language, two different groups of people moved apart, started speaking it differently, changed stuff, thousands of years passed, now you've got English and German. That's how languages are related, basically. But that's not the only way they work. Like, languages can swap alphabets. They can literally swap alphabets. English can swap and use the Russian alphabet and change minimal things, and it would still be English. They would just be using a different alphabet. Kind of. That's literally how you can change something so easily. So obviously there's religious, political, cultural reasons why languages change, geographical reasons. They need to move because of disasters, all these other things. And that can change languages as well. So my point with that is English and German is not the easiest language for an English speaker to learn. There are easier languages like Spanish, for example, that are way less related to English than German, but they're easier because of the components they have. So let's talk about some of the reasons that German is actually more difficult than some Romance languages. So you've got the German case system. German has 4 cases, English has 3. What the case system is basically every noun, so a noun, if you don't know, is person, object, thing. So people's names of places like Australia, America, those are nouns. Names of concepts, so freedom, capitalism, those are names of concepts, they're also nouns. And then things like book, tree, dog, anything that's a thing basically is a noun. With cases, the noun changes a little bit depending on its purpose. So for example, in English you've got the nominative case, so the person doing something is the nominative case is the person doing something. So for example, I throw the ball, the word I is, sorry, I'll say Ethan throws the ball, that's my name. Ethan would be a noun in the nominative case because it's doing the action. But if I said Ethan's dog, for example, Ethan is still the noun, but see how it has the apostrophe S on the end? That's because it's no longer in the nominative case, it's in the possessive case. So because I'm talking about something I own the dog, it gets an apostrophe S on the end. Case needs a video explaining itself. It is too difficult and too time-consuming to explain in one video. But if you take one thing away from case, it basically just means nouns change a little bit, like for example with the apostrophe S, depending on what they're doing in it. German has 4 cases, so by definition, its case system has more variety than English. English, the 3 cases we have are nominative, which is the doing of the verb, accusative, which is receiving the verb or receiving the direct object, and genitive, which is possessive. German has nominative, accusative, dative, and genitive, which is basically splitting the English accusative case into 2. We also call it the objective case. Those words mean nothing to you if you don't understand case. I'm really sorry about that. Please don't think that's the only really confusing part of the video. Moving on to simpler stuff to understand. Gender, German has grammatical gender. They have 3 genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter. Gender is largely arbitrary, like Romance languages, so words are just given genders, even if it's like a book or something that doesn't have a gender. And they have a neuter gender as well. You might think that sounds weird, but it follows the same principles as other gendered languages. They're just assigned neuter instead of masculine or feminine. It's pretty straightforward. And obviously articles and stuff change. So you've got D, I believe, is der is the masculine way of saying the. D is the feminine, and I think I'm not 100% good enough at German to name all the articles, but yeah, little words like that change because of gender. Standard German is also not too difficult, I will say. It's not the hardest languages. There are way harder languages like Russian and beyond that as well, like Japanese, Mandarin. Those languages are way harder than German. It's not a difficult language. It's kind of a moderate to intermediate language between easy and kind of medium, I would say. Yeah, there's not too many things that increase its difficulty beyond that. It has high lexical similarity, as I said, which is good. Verb conjugation is also fairly straightforward. I don't know if that's a common thing throughout Germanic languages, but it seems to be with English, German, Dutch, so maybe it's just that West Germanic side that has very easy verb conjugation. But yeah, it could be all Germanic languages. So German is very easy in that regard. So yeah, overall it's a moderate language. But should you learn German? So it can be a very cool language to learn. Excuse me. One of my good friends taught himself German. I wouldn't say he's like very, very good at it because he hasn't been learning for that long, but he can conversationally speak and answer basically all of my questions, that kind of thing, help with my pronunciation. So a knowledge of German and Germany can make travel to German-speaking countries very enjoyable. So German is definitely a good language to learn. I wouldn't discourage you from learning it. I wouldn't discourage you from learning any language, because learning a language full stop is good. But like, I could, if it was a language that was useless, I could kind of tell you not to do it. Like, it's not very useful. But yeah, German is extremely useful. Obviously, it's one of the most popular languages to learn, one of the most common languages. Germany is the fourth wealthiest country if you're considering wealth as far as total GDP goes. So the US has the highest total GDP, followed by China, Japan. Germany is fourth. So very rich country, very big. It's got more than 80 million people. If you live in Asia and Africa, that might not be that big of a deal, but in Europe, 80 million people is a big deal. I'm not sure. Russia's the biggest European country if you consider it in Europe. I'm not sure if there are any countries bigger than Germany population-wise. Ukraine isn't. Germany might actually be the biggest European country apart from Russia. I didn't actually look into that. I'm just realizing that now. So yeah, Germany, massive population, massive economy, very, very influential country. Yeah. It's also good for history, obviously. Not to talk about World War One and World War Two that much, but yeah, Germany has been a very influential country historically, and as someone who studied Nazi Germany recently, just out of personal interest, yeah, knowing German is really good for looking at. It's kind of annoying to look at a bunch of articles and stuff and not know what they're saying. We'll have to find a translate. So yeah, if you're interested in history, particularly modern history, an understanding of German is as important as French. Like, they're both really important. German's important too. So if your goal is to become a polyglot, you'll probably stumble across some Germanic languages at some point. So Germanic languages, you've got obviously Norwegian, Danish, Swedish, Dutch, Afrikaans, tons more. And yeah, having a knowledge of some Germanic languages is good. Obviously, you already know English, which is a Germanic language, but knowing one language isn't that good, particularly if it's your native language, because you don't really know all the rules, and particularly English, because we're not really taught the rules in school, as opposed to, I know a teacher I have had went to France, and he found out in the French education system, at least where he went, they taught everyone grammar rules and all this other stuff, which they don't do in Australia, where I'm from at least, which is kind of funny, because when French people asked him questions about English, obviously they've got a native English speaker, they're going to take advantage of that, and they asked him why stuff, he couldn't tell them why, he just said, this is the way it is because it feels right, which is kind of funny. But like, that's how it is. Like, you wouldn't say, I is here, and they would be like, why do you say is and not am? And the correct answer is because that's not how you conjugate the verb. But to someone who is from Australia who doesn't know the answer is just because it feels wrong to say I is. Like, that's the best you can get, which it's true, but like, you're not giving the actual answer. So yeah, having an understanding of German will help you actually learn Germanic languages, because obviously when you're learning, you kind of need to know the reasons behind stuff. Otherwise, that's not strictly true. You can not know the reasons, but it's much, much better to know why you're doing stuff than to kind of stumble around. So yeah, an understanding of German is very good for learning more languages, particularly Germanic languages. So a few interesting facts, because this video is getting quite long and I'm getting a really sore voice from talking because I don't feel well. German noun compounding does go to the extreme. So the longest word is allegedly 79 letters. I have no idea if that's actually true. I don't care if that's not the longest word. It's an example of German noun compounding. So basically, as you can see in the English Association of Subordinate Officials of the Head Office Management of Danube Steamboat Electrical Services, they combine a lot of words together to make one big word. But yeah, allegedly, I don't speak German, allegedly, that is really, really inconvenient to say, so they split it into smaller words that explain it quicker, which makes sense. But yeah, I don't know German. I'm going to try and pronounce that for your entertainment. I have no idea if I'm saying this right, and I'm not claiming I know German. This is just me giving a German language review, and I'm going to try and say this for fun. Donnerdampf, Schifffahrt, Selektricitäten, Hauptbetriebswerk, Bounte, Beamten, Gesellschaft. That's my attempt at German. I'm sorry. I don't speak German. Again, I'm not claiming I know any German really at all. But yeah, I just thought I'd put that in there. There are many words in German with no English equivalent as well. These are in a lot of languages, but yeah, there are words like Fremdschämen. I don't know how to say that, but it means feeling shame on someone else's behalf. And these are called untranslatables, or lacunas, which means gap, like a linguistic gap. So yeah, words that have no equivalent. So if you take a word like... There are words that have no equivalent in some languages, and then there are words that have no equivalent in any language. There are plenty that have no equivalent in some. Like in Italian, there's the verb dovere, which means to like it's your duty to do something, you must do it. There's not like a one-word equivalent. You kind of have to say it means to have to do something. So yeah, there are words like that that don't have exact translations. That's just the top of my mind because I actually speak Italian, I don't speak German. But yeah, potentially up to 250 dialects could exist as well, according to the linguists, because German is a highly dialectical language, and yeah, beginner learners of Standard German allegedly may struggle with communicating with people of different dialects. Obviously, you shouldn't focus on that if you're a beginner learner, but yeah, some level of mutual intelligibility exists across all levels of German dialects, and native speakers and experienced learners can communicate to some degree with everyone, I've heard. So yeah, that exists as well. That's not uncommon though, dialectical languages. So yeah, just to close, German's an extremely interesting language for those looking for a rewarding challenge. That's really not too challenging, but it is certainly rewarding. So yeah, that's basically everything on German I have. Again, I don't know German. I don't speak German. I know some very basic words. I can say the first German sentence I learned is Ich bin eine Mujer. Sorry, that was Spanish. Ich bin, how do you say woman? That's right, Frau. Ich bin eine Frau is I'm a woman because my friend told me that meant something else. And then I knew he was joking, but I said it anyway to see what would happen. And yeah, it means that. I don't know why I said mujer. Sorry. That's Spanish. I've never done that before. I don't usually mess up things like that. But yeah, if you're looking to learn a language as well, I'm working on my website, Head of State Language Learning. I'll have the link in the description. I have got a lot of stuff ready for it now. It's just not published yet, so soon enough there will be plenty more stuff on there. It's not completely working at the moment, but it basically has any language you can want to learn, and it's going to have links lined up explaining every possible thing you could need to know about that language, and you can just go through and learn them all in order until you've learned the language. It's perfect, it's free, yeah, and it's easy to use. But yeah, I'd appreciate it if you could like and subscribe as well. It makes me feel better, especially when I'm sick and I don't want to make videos, but I do it anyway because I'm a nice person. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.